Oh, okay. And if anybody wants a hard copy of the set of zoning.
Oh, you did? Well, I might take you up on that, because I can't, yeah, I think it's not coming up here.
And it's in the weeds in there.
Yeah.
So, this is our comments.
Oh, for the turn.
He usually strolls in right about now. How about that?
Your timing is impeccable.
What I'm gonna have to do is. go to-
Not a thing.
Nothing, literally nothing. I said it's okay, he usually strolls in right about. Literally walked in.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
These chairs.
It's all the way up there.
Excellent.
There we go.
Tiny. Tiny.
Now
Even when you feel tiny, you know. It's bad. He might be.
Laughing.
Who's there?
Anna Martin.
Laughing. It's really short.
Artie Johnson, the.
That is terrible.
Am I in the right spot?
Yep.
Oops, sorry,
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this workshop meeting for the Town of Henrietta Planning Board on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. Members present, Matt Borkowski, Patricia Brill, Craig Eckert, Walter Liss, Robert Barley, Marcy Reynolds, and Daniel Mastrella, Planning Board Attorney. Town staff present are Chris Martin, Director of Planning and Engineering, and Luke Bushin, Deputy Director of Engineering and Planning. At this point, I'll invite the board to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item this evening will be the approval of the minutes from our October 17th, 2023 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Chair, Mrs. Brill, thank you. Second. Mr. Barley, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank you. Minutes are approved. All right, first application this evening. What was that?
Sound like a turkey call.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
You're welcome.
It's Thanksgiving almost. First application this evening is application 23-015, Bob Johnson Buick GMC. This would be for final site plan approval of a 25,000 square foot building and associated parking for a car dealership located at 4600 West Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zone district. I'll have you introduce yourself when you're all set and just ask if you have signed in the back there. If not, you can do that a little bit later. But welcome.
Hello, members of the board. Joshua Saxton here, civil engineer at Passer Associates. With me is Jim Ritzenthaler, also a civil engineer at Passer Associates.
So sorry, I think it's on the name. Couldn't make out any of that. Can you just talk a little closer?
Sorry, Joshua Saxton at Passer Associates, and then Jim Ritzenthaler, Ritzenthaler. Nice. It's a long one. And I did sign in previously when I walked in. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming today and hearing this project. Want to give a little history before kind of getting into the current site layout we have. As stated, the project's at 4600 West Henrietta Road. We actually came before this board last year for site plan approval and got final site plan approval for a different layout. And that was because the building that we had there wasn't a true dealership. It was kind of more of a shell, and it was discussed at that meeting that we would come back when an actual tenant, an actual building was going to be proposed for the site. And that's what we're here today for. If you didn't know what it was before, it was an old motel for many years, kind of at the top of the hill there, was abandoned for a while. And after that site plan approval was granted, we actually, after going through all the approval processes of the town and supporting agencies, they actually demolished the hotel, motel, and did most of the site infrastructure. If you've driven by there now, it's, as you can see, it's kind of just a blank, almost parking lot. But a lot of site features are installed. All the stormwater chambers and inlets are on the site. The retaining wall on the south side of the facility is there. The riprap, a lot of stone is placed that wasn't fully paved. Majority of it is gravel right now. And it kind of has remained that way for a while. Kind of got right into it after the initial site plan approval. Actually took a change of hands. This used to be, was applied for West Her back at the original site plan application. Now it is at Bob Johnson owned, and it's proposed to be a Buick GMC dealership. They own the parcel right to the south, for reference of, you know, the location and the owner. I'm sure everyone's aware of Bob Johnson for the site. So as far as the site layout goes, not drastically different from the previous approvals. We're still in that same footprint of impervious area of the parking lot that we had before. The building kind of layout has changed a little bit with the, you know, the main entrance facing West Henrietta Road, and then maintenance bays kind of along the north there. That's kind of that part of the building sticking out where cars come in for maintenance checkups. And then along the back, in the eastern side of the building, that will mainly be for the maintenance of vehicles that you usually see a lot of these dealerships. Front is kind of the where they're selling the cars, and the back is where they work on them. As far as other site layouts, have 287 spaces, mainly for a car dealership, obviously for storage of vehicles and showing off vehicles. There were some comments on, you know, certain areas for customer parking, as well as different areas of the site that we'll get into. Like I said, most of the utilities are in, all the stormwater's in. We kind of molded the site around the existing drainage that's on site to make sure that we didn't have to replace the stormwater infrastructure. As far as sanitary and water, those were already previously approved, essentially stubbed out for the future connection. So no sense in putting in the full connections to the building if there was no building there. So this plan basically is connecting into those stubs that were previously installed. Did have a kind of a render of the building. Kind of similar to most car dealerships you'd see, there's kind of masonry and paneling along the front, masonry along the back. Obviously some window and glass frontage to show off vehicles in the inside of the building. Colors mainly, you know, bone white, and then, you know, a gray for the kind of the frontage of the panels there, with some maybe future coloring of the symbols of the actual providers of the vehicle, GMC and Buick, with their, you know, typical colors, but generally pretty plain frontage and colors that you most typically see at dealerships with kind of the neutral colors. So then we have received comments from town staff, Chris, Kevin Wilson, and the fire marshal, mainly pertaining to on-site facilities, since it is kind of a interesting kind of development of the plan, since it was kind of developed. So we actually went out and did a as-built survey of what was installed up to the point that it is now, to kind of see what was done and the grading to make sure it matched our initial design. And we kind of went based off of that. So just kind of identifying some of those existing utilities and confirming what's installed and showing that clearly on the plans. One item that also came up at the initial meeting that we didn't place on the plan, but is going to be included in the updated set, specific lay down drop off area for vehicles. I know that's been a hot topic and been a issue in the town with offloading onto main roads. And something that came up at the first meeting in the first planning board approval. And it probably come again today, but on the updated set, it's going to be similar to what the previous approval was in the back eastern area, away from the road and kind of in that open asphalt area to give them plenty of room to drop off vehicles onto the site. That being said, we did respond to the comments. We did submit them today, so I don't know if everyone's got a chance to review them. No real major comments, a lot of just notes and clarifications and some updates to the site. The other main one was actually the building location. It was encroaching in the rear setback to the property line to the east. Our plan is just to move the building up. We had plenty of room for the drive aisles and some extra space, so we're just going to move the building up so we don't need a variance for the building location. It was only, I think, a couple of feet that was needed. Yeah, to the west. There's only a couple of feet to get it out. It was 60-foot variant or 60-foot setback. I think we were 57 feet. So we're just moving it up to the west a couple of feet to get out of that, to avoid having to get that variance. So that being said, I guess the only other item would be landscaping. Some landscaping's already been installed on site. But as the full build out of this would commence, we'd put in trees in the areas that don't have them and in some of the islands and around the frontage. So that's changed a little bit from the original application, but not drastically enough. A lot of the perimeter trees that haven't been installed yet will be installed as part of the full build out. So I'm here to answer any questions you have on any of the comments from town staff or any other questions that you may have on the project.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Quick question. You may not know this, but it's a Buick GMC dealership they've got at the corner of Lehigh right in West Henrietta right now. Are they moving that, or
Yes,
so what's going to go down there? Do you know?
I believe Lexus. That was the last I heard.
Really?
I'm not with Bob
Okay.
Johnson, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, good. Well, good presentation. Thank you. We'll open it up to the board. I'll start this evening with Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
I just had a couple of quick questions and I didn't get a chance to get through all the comments, but I was having trouble with my tablet opening up files. The green space, was that addressed?
Yeah, it's 23% right now. That was one of the comments the conservation board had when we met with them. We had some of the islands as striped islands. So we were proposing to make them green space islands to kind of, help mitigate that. So it was about 23.5% green space right now on the
So
site.
you're gonna try to get that to 25 or you're gonna leave it at 23.5?
It's kind of difficult, just given that it is the site we're trying to find and scour all the areas that we can to get some of that green space.
There's no other request to drop that down, or, well, that's what I was gonna suggest, if that was allowed, is to allow, maybe throw some more trees in the big space that you have.
Offset that.
Huh? Oh, yeah. I'm glad Chris is here. So maybe that's an offset from some of that added request. Lighting. I think one of the conservation boards was 3,500K and I see 50K on there. Was there a chance to go down to 35, or this is a car dealership trying to light this up like from Saturn?
Yeah, I know it's, and I'm sure you've seen it, most typical car dealerships for the safety and just the look of the cars. They usually kind of have those brighter, higher color, lighting. It's definitely something we can approach about, but a lot of, dealerships have that, in place of that minimum color just for the safety and the look of the dealership. So it's something we can look into, but based on what the current lights that were installed, it maintained that color, but something we can look into.
All the lights are in?
There's some of them in it. I know there's temporary power out there now. That was mainly for, the construction and the development of the site.
Yeah, I don't remember if the poles and the lights are put in. It's been there a while.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to see a comm check though, then. If we can't get down to 35 from the 50K, I'd like to see a comm check on the lights.
Okay.
It's a requirement anyway from building code, right? So I'd like to see what that is. Elevations, I think we saw everything. So yeah, the only ones that I saw were pure white. So it's basically is going to be pretty close to white with the
It-
gray. No other colorations or anything on it.
There will be some gray paneling along the frontage to kind of
Ethos.
offset. It's not going to be white all the way around.
Gray is going to be the ethos.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything else, yeah, it was kind of hard to tell, how far the existing project got. And as far as what's existing out there. So if there isn't any, if there's landscaping that was previously approved but not installed, that's going to be on this plan
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I think that's it. I mean, the north half of this is all millings. The south half is paved. Is that
Yep.
right?
It's kind of
Okay.
stormwater chambers are right to the north of the retaining wall. It was basically at the limit of where those chambers were, just they wanted the paving over that. And then, yeah, everything north of that was
Okay.
the millings.
And I don't know if we ever, I mean, that project's technically still open, so I don't know if the southwest pond or detention area was ever as built. So did you do you said you did a kind of an existing as built?
Yeah.
Is that, if that meets the previous SWIP?
I believe it does. It
Yeah,
seemed
look
that
at
the,
it.
the area was comparable to what we had in the design.
Okay.
That's one thing we can confirm.
And then
But-
the catch basins on the north side are all high, probably because they're still in millings,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Besides those comments, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Eckert, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the show will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
You covered most of what I had questions about. Just know maybe for future reference, I don't think it's that big of a deal for this particular one, but when you're asking for final, we'd like to see materials, like actual materials. We kind of know where, at least I do, I know where you're going with this, but still we like to get hands on that stuff.
Yep.
Also, Mr. Mistrello, if we file or if somebody goes for an approval on this, do we have to reference that it's contingent on the drawings being moved? Because what we're theoretically approving, if we do, is not the accurate drawings, correct?
I think that, engineering would probably take care of that before anybody signs off.
Mhm.
So that, it sounds like that's something we have to consider here. To either,
Well, Josh said he was gonna move the building, but if you'd rather request relief, we can work on that as well.
Would that be something that could be granted tonight, or is that? I mean, I think moving the building is probably what we're gonna do just to avoid but might as well get it just in case if something comes in, that it has to move back, at least we have that to look back on as the variance there so that we can,
Is that going to
Perfect.
infringe upon the trucks though, being able to drive around to drop off, like you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting? Is that, if it remains there, I'm concerned it's too.
too tight to the edge.
Right.
Yeah, it is relatively close,
I think it would be the way to go for majority of the.
for the site and then also just to not have that variance.
yeah, I'd prefer it be moved too. But I also know that's a little bit of work, although with you guys, it's probably pretty quick, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know logistically whether we had to,
Winter.
I just didn't know if we had to make that a contingent approval. Now, when the hotel was there, it wasn't like a very busy place. So have we done any new left turn analysis or anything? I know we already have the curb cuts there, so they're done, but what are we thinking about left turns onto that busy road?
So where the entrance is, there's actually that double or goes into that left turn that goes on to Lehigh. There already, I believe, is that dedicated lane there. So at least people traveling south, it's not like they're gonna be stopped, especially at, this area is driving it a while, knowing people come ripping down that hill. They're not gonna be stopped in the driveway there, I believe. They're gonna be, have their own dedicated space to turn left into.
Yeah, I see if there is a left turn lane, so they could kind of camp there for a second.
Yeah, so they're not gonna be stopped there and then someone's coming down and could cause an accident. They'll
Okay.
And I do believe, Josh, that New York State DOT has already granted a permit for this
Yeah.
based on the previous project.
Yeah, it was mainly for the sidewalk that is gonna be installed. Obviously, once they start building the building, it was mainly for the sidewalk extension because that was in the DOT right away. But yeah, so that was mainly for that permit.
Okay, well, the DOT thing kind of answers my question. That's
Mhm.
good. I want to reiterate adding some green space like Mr. Eckert wanted. And other than that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Chair would like to welcome Councilwoman Safranik. Thank you. And Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Bear with me while I get back to.
Would you like me to go to someone else?
Nope, that's okay.
Okay.
I was gonna jump on what Craig said about the lighting and, so forgive me if this is being repetitive. I know this was mentioned when it came to the planning board last time, because I brought up the point that the folks at Patrick made a comment, oh, we went for the brightest we could get. I'm surprised it went through, and they have been the brightest lights ever. So I just want to make sure, first of all, we're addressing it when the new people come in and can tone them down a little. But I want to make sure, I know Craig talked about 35 from 50K. Can you elaborate that a little bit more for me? I want to make sure they're not overly bright for, flooding.
Yeah, no, and then definitely looking to the south. All of the lights are, especially they have their top lights and then kind of the midpoint lights if you've driven by. We're not proposing any of that. And then a lot less lights, essentially what's just needed for the site. Not, over lighting it, as opposed to the color difference. As you get lower, you get kind of more of that orangey color that you've maybe see on, expressways or older lights. As opposed to, what's proposed for this, which is kind of the more whitish light per se. Even though it is, a higher color temperature and it's a little bit more visible, the amount of lights. The amount of lights going to be significantly less than the southern property. We're not trying to put a light every, 50 feet on it just to overlight it. It's what's needed for the site. And then the color requirement was mainly based on, internal safety requirements of the site. Just, if you have that kind of lower color, it's harder to see, people and, inventory of the cars and things like that. So in typical, car dealerships, they have that higher temperature.
And the lower, Jonathan, is moving up fully to this location?
I believe that's the plan now. I know they're doing some work on it. I believe the frontage there now, start upgrading it, and that's kind of the plan is to,
And they will not own the lower?
I believe they'll still own it. It'll just be a different,
Okay. so
car.
they're gonna both, but have the different.
different
That's what my question.
distributor of cars.
I can add some insight to that. My understanding from when we met with them is that was we're gonna become a Lexus. I think they already have a permit to rebrand that building as it sits, and then they were gonna build a new one here for GMC.
GMC, okay.
Yeah.
We do have a residence to the north, but I don't know if there's a lighting issue.
Yeah, I think there's enough greenery and.
Yeah, I don't have too much of a profile to that. But, there's some vegetation and some elevation.
And everything else was answered in various other comments, so thank you for that.
What's that, Mrs. Brill?
And again, I do want to reiterate, I think it's best, especially in the winter, that would leave you what, 3 feet? And in the winter, if snow is pushed up on both, I think it would be a hardship. So I think moving to the west is definitely the way to go.
No, I agree. Opening up that drive aisle will definitely help out.
Or north.
Yeah.
We'll get some more.
What's that?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Josh, could you illustrate how that truck might come in on this property?
But as far as like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Yeah, as far as a variance, it'd probably be better just to move the building up
Mhm.
and then get out of that whole 60-foot space that you were thinking in the first place. On one of our sheets here, it says 24,000 square feet. Is it 25,000 square feet?
I believe 25.
Says plus or minus on one.
Plus or
It says
minus.
24. I was just wondering.
I believe it's 25. It's comparable, and it's also comparable size to what was previously approved.
Okay.
Um,
As far as the trees, if you're not able to get more green space in there, we do have a tree bank in our town where you can put those trees towards other places in the town. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Barley, thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
No, my question, I was gonna echo, Mr. Barley's about the tractor, trailer, the flow of traffic for a trailer coming in there. Cause I was concerned about the like tail swing and getting around the building and coming back out. But you explained that very well. I do plan on having, EV stations in this dealership.
I do not know at this time. I know it's becoming a hot thing to have those, especially with more electric vehicles coming
Well,
out.
it's on the high, and Buick is planning on a big rollout next year, of
Mhm.
electric vehicles. So I'm just thinking in.
Yeah, we're not trying it at
Yeah.
this time, but if, if it comes a request, we'll make sure to put it on the site plan and make sure that it's, probably be a dual charger type 2.
Well, request for EV.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, did you satisfy that there was a comment from Chris Martin about a major concern about the capacity of the sanitary sewer downstream? You know, that one, Chris, that you had
Yeah,
mentioned.
That's in the sanitary portion,
Mhm.
because this is tributary to our sanitary sewer district number 37. We ask anybody to contribute, well, not even ask, we tell you, you have to provide, fees for that. It's based on a square footage. So I can send you what those numbers are, Jeff.
Okay.
And is the plan, when you submit these plans, because I noticed in the Monroe County, comments that you need to submit these plans to the, Pure Waters for review and approval.
Mhm.
Is that the
Yeah, it'll
standard operating procedure now after you get a final site plan approval?
And yeah, and we've, we already reach out to, essentially, once we've submitted the plans, we usually reach out to the agencies around the same time so that we've addressed that. With this project, it already went through all those approvals,
Okay,
with Water Authority, Health Department, Pure Waters,
DOT.
DOT, all of that on the original design. And we've, followed up with them and basically said, hey, it's the same thing as before. You still good with it? And, they are, there's a significant enough change on the plans it's not like we changed the whole use of the site. Essentially the same thing, so.
Well, thank you. Look forward to it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. The chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a couple quick questions. I noticed when I was across the street over the weekend, the retaining wall, is that the final retaining wall or is that gonna be,
Yes, I believe that's the final.
is that the
along-
final one?
Yeah.
And you mentioned the sidewalk extension, is that from the part of the dealership down below?
Yeah,
So the pedestrian traffic?
there's a different sidewalk here and then part of. Is that in there?
Mhm.
For any future expansion that the town or whoever wants to add
And
sidewalk there.
That's the only way to navigate between the two buildings by foot, correct?
Yes, unless you want to climb the existing retaining
Well,
wall
I
to the
guess there-
south.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Steep, yeah. Well,
pretty
yeah, this
different.
portion, if you've been up there, it's one of the highest points in
It
Monroe
is.
County. And that road's pretty steep, so it's a trek going up the sidewalk there, but yeah, that would be the only pedestrian connection is it already is existing with that sidewalk there.
Mhm.
But it would just be for, any future connection if we wanted to come up over the hill and connect down at Calkins, so.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Mr. Mastrella, anything from your perspective, sir?
Just that you should probably, since it's come up about 5 times, clarify that
Yeah, because what I have quoted is saying a couple of feet. So I think maybe a little more.
60 feet. So it can't be less than 60 feet.
So two.
Did you mention 57 feet?
Yeah, that's what we had existing, shown on the plans. And so essentially be shifting it to get out of that variance requirement.
And then what would be the distance between that corner and that back retaining wall? Yeah, the building, I'm sorry, the southeast corner of the building and that wall runs. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martin, anything from engineering, sir?
I think just seeker, Mr.
Seeker,
Chairman.
okay, very good. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect square foot building and associated parking for a car dealership located at 4600 West Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. So I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Mr. List, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, we have seeker. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move ahead with approving application number 23015, Bob Johnson Buick GMC.
Thank you, Mr. List. And do you want to put the condition in there about the movement of the building to meet the 60-foot setback? Is that their variant? Yeah,
Yeah, minimum 60, 60
3 feet
feet.
to the west, equal to 60 from currently 57.
okay. Is that good, Mr. List? Can we add that to your motion?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Brill, you all set?
And I will second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Congratulations, you're all
Thank you.
set.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Mr. Martin.
I believe that Josh is also going to be giving the presentation for the Menotti Crossing.
Oh, he is.
Build out.
Okay.
If I could be so bold, maybe have him moved up so that.
Actually, I'd done that already. I talked to Heather the other day and that was the next
Oh,
application
see?
on my list here,
I
so.
should have just stayed quiet, but no, that's hard for me.
Well, that would be a hard thing.
It is.
Nope, I called Heather the other day and said, hey, can we just move that up and make that, so Josh, welcome. We're next on the agenda is application number 23-019, Menotti Crossings Plaza Build Out. This is for final site plan approval for the continued development of Menotti Crossings Plaza, including a 9,550 square foot mixed restaurant and retail building and a 3,000 square foot retail building located at 823 Jefferson Road in an industrial with specifics zoned district. Welcome again.
I'm still Josh, Pastor Associates. Here to talk about another project, Menotti Crossings. It's been, kind of a history of this project as well. It was similar to the previous application, kind of went through an overall approval. That was mainly for the Hobby Lobby that's currently there now. Last year, we kind of went through a similar, case and procedure going through now for this with the Panera that's kind of in the northwest on the opposite side here that's finishing up relatively soon and will be opening. And this is kind of just the next iteration of the expansion and the development of the parcel to this area. On the original application back in 2019, I believe, this building and this area essentially remain the same layout. The only difference is where we now show that one-way lane and the angled parking, it was building. So it actually was kind of one continuous rectangle, just as similar to the previous application, almost a shell of, what a future layout could be. There's been a lot of iterations of what could go here and some planning. but now we, have the tenants lined up and kind of ready to go with this layout, which is, as I previously stated, pretty much the exact same as what was previously approved, minus just less building space and more parking islands and grass islands kind of filling in that area. So just to kind of give some familiarity with the site, like I said, Hobby Lobby is kind of located on the south here, Panera here, the existing parking lot kind of located at the center, and this is in that kind of northeast quadrant there. Although this isn't a part of the application, and Pastor Rowe Associates did not work on the project, we also showed the layout of the future Shake Shack. Is that what it is? Shake Shack
yeah.
going in there on the parcel that used to have the Denny's, and just also kind of showing the connectiveness between the two parcels. Proposing a entrance along the north there to allow cross access of the site, so that also opens up the that parcel. If someone needs to come out to Jefferson, they can go out through the existing entrance to the plaza. So as far as the site goes, again, just focusing on this northeast corner, mainly parking lot. And if you've driven out there, you've probably seen it's mainly just millings and gravel there now, awaiting for the future build out that we're trying to get tonight. As far as similar to the other project, a lot of the utilities and everything has already been installed. The existing sanitary sewer runs along the southern portions of the building. I'm just going to be tying in with laterals and appropriate other features, which, in the restaurants could be, grease trap for making sure that we have those on the sanitary tie-ins, water beyond the north, and stormwater infrastructure is already installed. And just going to be, essentially existing, but with paved over. All the stormwater on the site goes to a central stormwater chamber system located in the parking lot. Get some other site features. There's bioretention area along the north side. That'll be finalized with this development for stormwater treatment. And that will also connect eventually and terminate into the underground chamber system. As far as other items go, landscaping, the existing signs kind of located in the northwestern corner. That's already in with some landscaping. But as part of this project, we'll be filling in similar to the original approval, trees on the islands and additional shrubbery and development of those. So that's essentially what we have for this. We also added, I believe, a dumpster enclosure next to where one of the existing ones will be located, just to the south of it, just for the additional refuse volume that we may need for some of these tenants. So that's essentially it for this. Like I said, pretty much the exact same of what was previously approved, just with a little less building. So here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Josh. We'll begin now with Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
I was gonna ask about tenants, but you said you did have some lined up
Mhm.
already, and are there 5 spaces in the larger building?
Yes.
Okay,
And then one larger.
and then the one
Yep.
single. That's the only question I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Are all the colors in the building materials going to be consistent with Hobby Lobby and Panera? So kind of give a nice blend.
Yeah, so the existing Hobby Lobby, similar colors, they kind of have the white, gray, and then obviously their color for their logo, is provided in the kind of the renderings, a similar, look to that as well as the adjacent Panera, trying to make it not too drastic of a difference. But kind of shown here with some brown, white, wood, materials, along the frontage, that was kind of provided in this rendering. So, yeah.
And you did take care of the access easements to Shake Shack, right? They've been satisfied.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome. Josh, where were you gonna put those dumpsters?
So, they're located kind of in the southeastern corner. There already was a dumpster proposed there. We're just adding an additional one to Especially with the types of tenants have a lot more trash. So we're not trying to push it up to the front, keep it in the back away from the road.
And where will you store the snow?
So essentially on the site, try not to put it in the bio retention areas to the north. But there will be some grass islands around, to store the snow. And also some designated areas on site that the plows will put it for that, so.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're welcome. There's just a couple comments. There's not a lot of comments here, so I think we're in good shape, but Chris mentioned that there's the setback is usually 125, but there's an average because of the old Denny's, right?
Yep.
So are we in line with all of that?
Yep, I think it was 81.7 was what
Right.
we had.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's in line with the Panera across the street.
Okay.
We kind of had it right to there, so.
Beautiful. And as far as truck turning movements, are we seeing any problems with any of that?
Nope, that was one of the comments. We did run, dedicated fire lanes kind of to the south here, so that will mainly be used by the trucks, but just in case of emergency, we did run one kind of going through the site, a fire truck, and we found that there was adequate turning movement for it.
Okay, very good. All the other stuff looks okay, and I appreciate the renderings because that sets me a little bit more at ease on how that's gonna look from the road. And I'm actually excited for this thing to start cranking, so I'm all good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. I have nothing additional.
Very good. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I do have a couple, I guess, odd comments. I'm not sure if we have a complete set here. I mean, I see the rendering too, but we don't see any other elevations on the sides of the back.
Mhm.
And I'm not, all I have is what a site plan and a landscaping plan.
Mhm.
And I understand we have a build out on another project, but the site plan that I also have shows another building. Are we not acting on this other building?
Yes, so that was the original application included the larger, it was 60,000 square feet to the south. That was a discussion, and I decided to rescind that building for now, just for getting confirmation of the tenant, and didn't want to, similar to what previously happened when we were going through the Panera and the furniture store that was going in there, a similar situation where going in with it before, finally confirmed and then ended up not happening. Didn't want a similar situation here. So just mainly focusing on the northeast parcel here. We will come back to the planning board with elevations and, full site design of that southern building when we have that finalized.
I mean, I absolutely want to see this move forward. I want to see this project built out, especially due to the namesake of it, but without elevations, I don't have any other color schemes or anything else to look at. I'm not honestly sure I'm doing a full review. We don't have, a full plan set or elevations, which is what I thought was part of the package.
Mr. Mark,
Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
And I agree with Mr. Record. I think we really need to see the northern building elevations because they are gonna face Jefferson Road. What I would
yeah.
like to suggest, because the elevation you provided, Josh, I would assume it's a south elevation, correct?
It's the facade facing Jefferson Road, but we still,
No, I think it's the one, so that right there is facing to the south, right?
No, I believe that's facing Jefferson.
that's
Road.
facing
northern
Jefferson.
one?
Yeah, that's the frontage.
Yeah, that's
So
how I
that's-
read it, is that it's facing Jefferson Road, but we still don't have what's on the backside facing Hobby Lobby.
Right. All right,
Or
so
the
having
sides.
just been corrected, which is good. Maybe what we could do is do a conditioned site plan approval with the building elevations coming back in December. If that would be acceptable to the board. So
Okay.
then it gives the contractor going to get the site plans going or finished, but then the planning board, or another option we could do is to send us all the renderings for all four sides in an email, and then we could discuss that with the board as well. But I'll leave it up to the board what you decide.
thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Eckert, anything else, sir?
No, that's it. I'm not, again, I can't really complete too much. Again, I don't know about lighting. And stuff like that to ask questions about.
Okay. Mr. Mistrell, anything from your perspective, sir?
Is there any true advantage to a conditional approval this evening?
I think it would go for getting, having the conditional approval be good for, the client to have. With the understanding, obviously, we'd come in with, the full elevations to get all sides of the building and finalize. Even though they're just, essentially lateral connections to the existing utilities, and grading will essentially be the same, a full set of showing everything that it's, adhering to the town standards. I think getting the conditional approval and then with the understanding coming in and submitting those final drawings for, planning board and town staff approval would be ideal.
So what will it allow you to do in the next month before our next meeting? I guess is what I'm hearing.
Having a conditional approval?
Yeah.
I mean, we would nothing on site, because obviously we'd still have to get the sign off on drawings and make sure, all the agencies are good. And, if a part of the approval is coming back for the elevations, that would be, required from the board. It wouldn't change much, but, instead of, I'm just trying to think, because, I understand where you're getting at. If, we just have to come back anyway with the full plans and the elevations, what's the point of an approval now if we're just gonna wait a month to come back for it?
Mr. Mistrell, are you maybe suggesting a table this evening until next week or next month? I mean,
Well, it's just, what's just been asked for is fairly significant. And if there's a true advantage to the applicant in getting a conditional approval this evening, it isn't gonna be a true final approval, then there's not a problem with going with a conditional approval, I guess, but it just seems a little counterproductive to not do a final approval all at once. So you're gonna wanna see those elevations, and I think you wanna see a lighting plan, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know how much is existing. I don't know how much is existing to how much is gonna be new to the building or added to that
And-
corner.
And if I may just add my 2 cents. The plaza, the parking lot lighting isn't changing. The only lighting that's really gonna change is what's gonna be on the building. The utilities, we've already kind of seen them before in previous applications. We've seen this probably about at least 2 or 3 times already under the overall plaza when they did Hobby Lobby and also when Panera Bread came in. So this is kind of our third shot. So I'm not worried about the utilities and a lot of the comments. The lighting, again, the parking lot lighting is in. The only thing that's gonna be different is the building. To me, the big thing is the building elevations.
There aren't gonna be any new standalone lights on that corner or over in the east side.
Well, I guess that's a question for you, Josh.
Yeah,
Or is it gonna be building mounted lighting that's gonna light up that area?
I believe that's the intent, is the building mounted lighting, with some of the existing lights already in. That's something that we'll have to look at to fully confirm. I don't want to say we're not adding lights and then all of a sudden we are, and I want to say we're not adding lights, and so.
And certainly, Mr. Ecker and I can, once we get revised plans, and we can go over some of this. If the board feels, that would satisfy it. I guess. I'm not trying to push this, but by the same token, we did meet with the developer, and I think he was in a hurry to get this process started. And I think a condition approval would certainly benefit him in getting to the next step and signing leases and things of that nature. But if the board feels that it should come back because of some of these issues, I'm certainly fine with that as well.
We can certainly ask the rest of the board, Mr. Chairman. You can certainly see what everybody else wants to do. I like to see full applications.
Can I ask a question to clarify? So the way I'm thinking of a conditional versus tabling is basically they have to come back and bring the same end product to us at the next meeting. to get final. Is that, am I right so far?
So they would certainly have to bring back, I mean, certainly revised plans are better to address not only our comments, but some of the conservation board comments as well. Yeah, I think we would certainly want a revised set of plans that would show that would address the comments. But to me, the big things are the lighting would be the lighting and the building elevations.
Yeah, so Patty, I think what we're saying is if we do it conditional, it's gonna be more administratively handled now, maybe via email, that kind of stuff. So we'll see the elevations that way, maybe the updated plans.
Which we've done before.
Whereas if we table it, we just do
It's-
all this at a meeting at the dais. And we actually have all the plans as opposed to just the 3 drawings that we have now. So we'll have the lighting, we'll have the renderings. So really, that's the difference.
Mhm.
If we table it, it comes back to this board, we do this again. If we do it conditional, we can do it administratively via email, and we all say, yes, I'm good with that elevation and the lighting.
Yeah, as long as the items can be addressed, administratively, when,
Yeah, like I said, this is a unique one only because we've seen it before. Not so much in this configuration, but very similar.
And I struggle with the developer getting leases signed and things like that without having the final approval anyway.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
I think I heard you say if we give a conditional, that
Yep.
they can go ahead with signing leases and things like
I
that.
think it helps. I don't know if he has any leases signed or not. But it's certainly if some people are on the fence, knowing that they have an approval. It certainly does help their cause to get other people to sign up or, to get the process moving.
Any further discussion? Yeah, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve based on conditional approval to come back.
Or to submit.
Or to submit administratively or otherwise. Elevations, lighting, view from the south, the Hobby Lobby view, et cetera.
Mhm.
Anything else I need to add to that?
I think the other thing would be these, the landscaping plan, the conservation board would like to see like to see a landscaping plan again at the December meeting. I think that should be a condition.
Okay. That's sufficient second, please.
Second.
Mrs. Reynolds, thank you. Discussion?
Seems very rushed. There's too many conditions for me.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
No.
So we had 1, 6 and 1. Okay, and then putting the chair, the ayes have it. We have condition approval. And we'll look forward to the revisions and the elevations administratively, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we've got 3 solar projects. I will remind the board that we are taking no action on this evening. Mr. Martin, would it make sense to address all these things kind of together?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly, I think I would do it in 2s. I think I would do.
The Lehigh's and then,
Lehigh's separate from Tobin Road,
okay,
because there are some unique characteristics with each site.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I would request that as well.
Yep, okay. So we'll start with application 23-016, Green Spark Solar,
No.
Tobin Henrietta Solar LLC. This would be for final site plan approval of a 4 megawatt, is that right? DC 3 megawatt AC ground mounted photovoltaic solar array on approximately 14.1 acres located at 55 Tobin Road in a rural residential district. Good evening.
Good evening.
That
Thank
was
you,
a
Chairman
mouthful,
Gruner.
but,
I'm sure.
Good.
thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Gruner. Thank you, board members, for having us this evening. My name is Brooke Mayer from Green Spark Solar, here on behalf of all 3 applications. I'm joined tonight by my colleague Matt Vanderbrook, my colleague Mia Morgillo, our partner at Fisher Associates, our civil engineer Steve Malott, and one of our property owner partners, Bruce Howlett, who I think many of you are familiar with.
You all
Um,
signed in.
Called out.
And if you have business cards too, you can leave those.
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely.
Can you just leave it here? 'Cause I used that pen. My other one died. I'm so sorry.
So with, again, yep, here for three separate projects, two of which are co-located, the Lehigh South projects. I'll speak to the Tobin project first,
Yes,
and then we
thank
can
you.
proceed. Absolutely. So Tobin Henrietta Solar, this is on a parcel in the rural residential zoning district, presently, used for agricultural production. It's owned by Mark and Linda Heinz. We are proposing a 3 megawatt AC ground mounted solar array, which is approximately 6,900 photovoltaic solar panels. 6,900. The primary area of disturbance, so the actual array, is about 14.1 acres of the 28.5 acre parcel. All concentrated toward the back of the property, so it's very much tucked away. And then there's an additional 0.66 acre access road going back to Tobin Road, which is indeed a county road. The residents will remain at the front of the property. The intent is to administratively subdivide the parcel so that it's effectively two separate parcels, one for the residents and the area that they'll be retaining, and then one for the solar array. There is a New York State DEC wetland. We've conducted wetland delineation for this project. Here at the southwest corner of the site, we are wholly avoiding, sorry, I'm tongue twisted tonight, wholly avoiding the wetland plus the 100-foot adjacent area. There is some tree clearance associated with the installation of the array. It amounts to about 2.5 acres. We do have the tree clearance plan here if anyone's curious at zeroing in on that. We are actively in the process of our New York State Ag and Markets review as a parcel within a state certified agricultural district. That triggered a notice of intent review with New York State Ag and Markets. That process is slated to wrap up at the end of the month, but effectively they would be commenting on whether or not this would have any adverse impact on the ag district at large. I think that's pretty much the basics, and I'd love to hear the board's questions. Chris helpfully circulated some of your questions ahead of time, so prepared to respond to those.
Yeah, thank you. We had to kind of educate ourselves on this too. We got, Heather was kind enough to send a couple links to our solar policy in the town and also the incentive districts and such. I know there's no incentive requested for this project, correct? So
There is actually.
oh, there is.
And I can speak to the incentive zoning
Okay.
piece as well.
How did I miss that then? I apologize for that then, but yes, go ahead.
Sure. So, so with regard to the incentive zoning proposal, the Town of Henrietta Solar Code is, it includes, substantial farmland preservation provisions. Effectively for every acre, up to 25 acres of solar development, it requires the developer to secure an agricultural conservation easement across 3 times that in active farmland. So in the case of the Remelt project, that was most recently the project that underwent that process. They were able to secure that easement in their own land. Here, because the parcel will not be maintained as agricultural use, we have worked with the town to explore the possibility of instead pursuing an incentive zoning approach here. So we are actively applying for an incentive zoning permit from the town board. And what we've proposed here is in exchange for relief from that farmland preservation piece, that we would contribute a monetary contribution to the Town of Henrietta Parks and Recreation Department for a particular use. And we are actively discussing that with the supervisor, with the town board, as to where that allocation would go.
And Brooke, if I interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
You did pursue, or did you pursue other farmers in the general area?
Yes.
And what was their reaction?
So it is challenging to find contiguous farmland, because the intent of the solar code is to find adjacent contiguous farmland. In this case, we did engage the adjacent property owners and did not have luck in terms of securing that easement. And again, that easement is for the lifetime of the project, not in perpetuity. And so we looked a little further afield, but ultimately because the property itself will not be maintained as active farmland use, the guidance from the town was that, we're not meeting the letter of the law for that provision at all, because we're not building on active farmland, and it would not be maintained as active farmland, so that it would be worthwhile pursuing incentive zoning in exchange for that. And certainly, so one of the amenities that developers can provide through your incentive zoning code, in exchange for the incentive, in this case, relief from dimensional requirements, is to obtain a farmland conservation easement, but in perpetuity. So it kind of moves the needle when you're going from the solar code to the incentive zoning code with respect to farmland preservation, particularly when the ask of the farmland property owner is substantially different. To ask for, conservation easement over the next 25 years versus in perpetuity is a very big difference for them in terms of their options for their property.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You mentioned farmland conservation easement. Is that the same as the agricultural conservation easement?
Correct.
It is. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that became an even more challenging piece to secure in terms of the farmland, satisfying the farmland preservation piece. We'd really love to incorporate that somehow into our proposal. But in terms of now needing to adhere to the incentive zoning code as opposed to the solar code for the farmland preservation component, securing that amount. So in this case, because we're building a 14.1 acre array, that would equate to about 45.5 acres of farmland preservation. And that became very difficult to secure in perpetuity, given the development pressures, given that it ties up options for the long haul. So not having been able to secure a conservation easement over ag lands, we looked at the other options baked into the incentive zoning code, one of them being to provide, and I'm just going to pull the exact language, to support the creation, maintenance, and or enhancement of public parkland, trails, and or rec facilities. And so that would be under the neighborhood upgrade incentive zone. And so that's what we're proposing here. I think we're awaiting initial feedback from the town board to understand, is that what the town is looking for? Does it align with the town's land use and development goals? Is there a particular project that we could potentially contribute toward? Those are the outstanding questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask you which incentive category you were trying to get classified under.
Yep.
And you'd mentioned the neighborhood upgrade, and I kind of thought that might be where you were going. And as I read the information that we've got here, my first thought was it doesn't really apply. It doesn't. Now you read something that's different than what I've got here.
Okay.
Let me just read what I've got from our printout. It says the neighborhood upgrade incentive category. Can't read that far away anymore. Let's see, encourages upgrades to infrastructure where needed in adjacent residential neighborhoods when being developed anyway as part of an applicant's development. This may include extension of utilities and public services referred to as drag-along infrastructure. And the purpose is to improve visual and functional transition between the new non-residential development in adjacent residential neighborhoods. So I didn't see the connection there. Chris, let me just ask you.
Yeah.
Am I missing something there, or is
No.
there?
In this particular case, there's really not much infrastructure or like sidewalks or
Right.
sewers or, you know, water. A lot of that's already, well, sewers aren't there, but it would be very difficult to put sewers in that area, especially since the project doesn't require it. So I think the park area is probably what they were looking for.
Which I didn't see in this definition that I've got here. So thank you for reading that. And I also heard you mention before the meeting started that it's possible for the applicant to donate monies to be
Oh.
used elsewhere in town, or no?
No, I mean, we don't really like to go the financial route because
We
it
don't,
looks like
okay.
we're, you know, bribed for lack of a better term. So yeah, normally we don't like the.
Okay,
But, you know, whatever you provide, certainly we would want to kind of similar to what the cash equivalent would be if you were going to purchase the land or the rights from another farmer.
Right.
But that's more like town board. I guess we're looking for, from input from this board is, you know, maybe are there things, other incentives that you would like to see, or, you know, what your overall thoughts and feelings are for the project?
okay. So in your mind, then, this potentially could fit in the neighborhood incentive.
Not so much neighborhood, but I think in the neighborhood, maybe in a sense of parks, and unfortunately, I don't have my code book with me, Dan,
Yeah.
but
I do, I'm looking for the section.
we probably hide it in there somewhere so that you can't find it.
The neighborhood,
534.
Yep.
8.
Yep, 295.34.
You know
Yes.
what subdivision it was you read to the board?
That was 295.34.11C for the incentive requested. And then for the amenity
Oh,
proposed,
yeah, the neighborhood of.
it would be 295.34.12C3.
Yeah, so there are additional amenities or benefits on, you're right, section 295-34.12. And it doesn't count, let's see here. That's about conservation, open space. And subdivision.
Shouldn't something be used in the historic properties incentive category? Would that be applied instead of the neighborhood upgrade incentive category? Because you're in an area where
You got it, Craig, there?
it can be kind of an archaeologically sensitive location, cultural resources in the hamlets of East and West Henrietta, and you're close to East Henrietta there. I mean, it's I thought.
Do we know who will be lead agency on this? Have that?
Town board.
Town board. Town
Yeah.
board?
yep,
Seeker is ongoing. It
Okay.
should wrap up in,
Probably the
I
first
think,
or
the end of the
second.
month. Yep, November 30th for coordinated review.
Just for what it's worth, from my perspective, I read through this incentive zoning earlier today, and you could really push it with what we're saying the incentive is, but I don't see anything really matching up, at least as far as this application goes. I can see a little bit more on the other two that we're gonna talk about, but on this particular one, my personal opinion is I can't really find a place where this applies to incentive zoning, but
And
Fortunately for this board, that's up to the town board.
Right, right.
So
they're
Well, I
looking for
think
some
they want
input.
some
Yep, they
feedback
want some
also.
feedback from us this evening. You know, our thoughts and opinions and such. But I sort of agree with I do agree with Mr. Borkowski that I didn't really see the direct connection between our incentives per se and this particular project. Again, the other ones I do see a little bit more as well, but it's my opinion. And yeah, certainly I'll pull the rest of the board and you can share your thoughts as well.
Chris, again, what's the code? 295, 34.
34.11 and 0.12 are where they really talk about it, but
For amenities.
yeah.
11 and 12.
I've got it here in PDF if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah,
incentives.
no, 12 is the benefits, right?
Yeah, I know we've talked about it
What would be the
indirectly
length of
with
the project?
The construction period or the lifetime of the project?
Contract for the solar panel.
So a conservative estimate would be 25 years. You know, the industry is still young. We see, we're just many of the larger installations are just now aging up to 25 years. And so we do have extensions on our lease policies options for extension.
You mentioned the Ramel project, that solar project, a lot smaller than this one. You guys are looking to clear out about 2.5 acres of trees.
Correct, on
Would that
this
take-
one. Mhm.
Okay, will that take care of it? Would that be all you would need?
As in, will we need to come back? I know the remote
Exactly,
project. Yes, we've been forewarned about that.
Yeah, because they came back to do more trees after the panels were in.
Yeah. Oh,
Didn't
after
go
it was
over well.
installed.
Yeah, didn't go over too well, but they did it.
Okay.
So
Th-
as
that,
they've already mentioned, it'd be good to make sure you have the right amount of trees you're gonna clear and not come back to the board for that later.
okay. Thank you.
This is we laid out the clearing. Basically, like we do it for production.
Mhm.
So we mapped it out, so I feel comfortable with the ask that we have.
Yeah, some of the reasoning for those were the panels wouldn't get enough sun.
Exactly. Okay.
So they had to clear more, okay, which didn't make the owner too happy either, you know.
Yeah, that's like, all the trees are coming out already.
Mhm, mhm. So the Lehigh Valley Trail is there, was any consideration for? Oh, that's right, it's way over.
That's the Tobin project right now.
I know.
Yep.
We get them confused all the time.
I saw it on the map.
That's
I
fair.
just meant for it.
I did just want to know, this is the tree clearance plan I just pulled up, so everything.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And you mentioned that, it's 14.1, but the total mass of that property is 20 what?
28 and a half acres.
28 and a half?
Yep.
And Brooke, to go back, you said there were two sections, right? There's one section for the residents.
Correct.
and-
Yes.
And so how many town residents will get the advantage of that section of the field? Right? I mean, is that going to be power distributed to whom?
I see. Sorry. So, so just to clarify, we will be pursuing an administrative subdivision. I think, that will be at the December planning board meeting. But it will be administratively done. But the intent would be, essentially to
You were asking about the energy.
Who's going to get the benefit, right? I thought you
benefit.
mentioned earlier that the residents were going to get the north part, right?
Yep.
And then you got, so who was going to benefit from the power generated from
Yep.
there? Which residents?
So this is actually, the arrangement that we have discussed to date is actually not for residential beneficiaries.
Okay.
But actually a commercial beneficiary through a net metering arrangement.
Through a what?
Through a net metering arrangement. So essentially what happens is we produce energy on site that gets sold back to the grid. And that the credits generated through generating clean energy for the utility grid get credited back to what's called an off-taker. So the beneficiary of the power generated on site. And that's simply a remote process. We list their utility account number as an RG&E customer, and they get credited with that discount. We're actively in discussions with a Henrietta-based employer. We don't have a contract in place yet, but that is the That is the intent here.
That was one of the questions I had. I didn't know it wasn't gonna be residential. Okay.
Basically, again, this is the project, depending on, timelines and everything, it could change with the options to go in between whether it's residential, commercial, both. The intention of building the program, is to provide basically electricity savings for the project, like. So that's sort of how it's started, whether that's commercial or residential.
Are all three of these going back to commercial?
That's the intent right
Okay.
now. But as Matt said, we have flexibility in the event that we would want to shift that, but the intent is this commercial off
So
taker.
the beneficiary of the credits, if you will, from the clean power generated is RG&E. Not the end beneficiary. It's going to RG&E as opposed to NICEAG or whatever.
We sell, yeah, so basically, we put in a new service, all the electricity that we generate goes out on local distribution grids, or, basically feeding the lines within that area of RG&E. Then RG&E is required to basically credit the project for what's produced, and then the credit are then applied to, allocated to whoever. So essentially, the credits have to be sent to someone's electricity bill to offset their.
And that's part of my next question. Who gets to be a beneficiary? How were they chosen? Do they have to choose? Is it automatic?
In this case, so for residential, and I know the town has the CCA. Where people could go and enroll in community solar projects.
Community choice aggregation.
So for this project specifically, this is a customer that we've been engaged with for over a year, seeking to meet basically they have client goals.
The end user.
End user, yes.
Okay. So one specific end user. This is being created for one particular large end user currently in the town of Henrietta. So it's not like it's benefiting many. And then I was gonna ask, how far does the footprint spread? But it's a moot point if it's only really being built to accommodate one company.
But one
What-
company versus, 2,000 residential. I mean,
Right,
depending on
so.
power usage.
Yep, the rough residential equivalent is about 1,400 homes. So in terms of the kilowatt hours generated on an annual basis, it's the rough equivalent of powering 1,400 homes every year.
Okay.
And so that this this one company has an energy appetite that would exceed that, actually. So it would be
I
offsetting.
wish I wrote down some of your words you used tonight. You used one earlier. I didn't write it down. It was, I got it.
We're videotaping. So there's no-
Yeah, there you
Look
go.
at it later. Yeah, this is, it's always been something intriguing to me that I never knew how we, residential or commercial, benefit from any of this.
Yeah.
But half of my questions went out the window when it's really only for one person, and I don't know how that's fair to other businesses. But if, I don't know, it's way above my pay grade. Anywho.
Well, thank you.
Well, and it's, yeah, one company that employs many people. So there is a ripple effect, so to speak. But I appreciate
Yeah,
what you're saying.
I'll give you, so we have built 2 projects for Heritage Christian Services, another thing with we built 2 projects for them. One is in Parma, one is in town. And so those projects basically supply all of the electricity for Heritage Christian main offices here, as well as all of the group homes throughout the county. So that's essentially their sort of renegotiated.
That's a great analogy because they're getting the credits to their accounts.
Yes.
Thank you.
For power that they make, yeah.
It's really just in the paperwork. Yeah.
Not just getting, they're just getting it on, they only use the money to
Thank
use
you.
their electricity costs.
Perfect analogy. I really appreciate that.
But from a beneficiary perspective, so New York State has passed the climate bill in 2019. We have very ambitious climate goals related to carbon-free, achieving a carbon-free energy economy, right? And so and I'm gonna pull this up so I'm not speaking out of school. So the New York State Climate Act requires New York to achieve certain reductions in carbon emissions by certain milestones. And so part of that Climate Act is that we achieve 6,000 megawatts of distributed solar by 2025 and then 10,000 by 2030. So the utility as the load serving entity, as the provider of energy in our state is burdened with meeting those portfolio reductions, essentially. And so we're helping them meet their goals, New York State mandated goals, to find reductions in
So they get
greenhouse
credit
gas
for
emissions.
this. They
Sorry?
get credit for these projects,
Correct.
essentially.
Yes.
Part of
Yeah.
their, yeah.
And we go through what's called an interconnection approval with the utility, in this case, RG&E, in which they review our plans. They demonstrate where we would need to make upgrades to the utility grid to be able to add this additional service to it. So we've gone through that process here and have interconnection approval, and we're proceeding accordingly. But so that is sort of the utility's nod to say, yep, this is going to be part of our portfolio, part of our strategy for meeting these New York State goals.
I would just mention, I don't want, is brought up the utilities infrastructure. As part of this project, we are spending a decent amount of money, all these projects. We have to pay the utility to upgrade the infrastructure to allow us, so they will actually upgrade it. Some stations and the distribution lines that are feeding the project, so it's, you know, when you put all of the projects that you develop and you're all together, it's a pretty significant amount of money that's going, so upgrading out of this.
Which brings up another question regarding the Masonic Care Community. That was already approved on the parcel directly to the south of the middle road, access road that's gonna head to the east. Is that affecting that? Are they aware of it? Do they need
Yeah.
to be aware of it?
There's been a lot of coordination between the two, and actually from the town standpoint as well, because we want to use that as a link to the Lehigh Valley Trail. So, and create a parking area back there, which I think is one of the incentives that, you
Yeah.
know, we'll talk about when we get to that project.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so, so the property owner then, he's getting some percentage of this as well, correct? And that's,
Not of the energy produced. He is getting an annual lease payment from us,
That's right,
having
okay.
entered into a long-term land lease.
okay.
Kind of like a cell tower on your
Yep,
property.
yep, okay.
But certainly that is something that we explore in our projects more generally, if there were, you know, a need there. But in this case, the interest is simply in the annual revenue from
Yep.
the lease.
Okay.
Once this array is up, let's say once it's up, can you talk about maintenance of that area?
Yes, for sure.
underneath
So
the panels? How do you handle that?
yep. So we, Green Spark, are the long-term maintenance and operations partner.
Mhm.
So we, generally speaking, solar arrays are a relatively light touch on the land in that we're not introducing impervious area. We largely just kind of mow the area and keep as much of the existing vegetation in place as possible. And the intent is really not to change the existing grading or change the existing drainage patterns. The intent is just to drive posts for the racking that can support the solar array.
Mhm.
And so our maintenance contract is really limited to, you know, preventative maintenance inspections, mowing a couple of times a year as needed. We are introducing sort of a pollinator planting mix here, so it would look a little bit like a meadow landscape.
Mhm.
But the intent is to, you know, not let that growth grow beyond the leading edge of the solar because you don't want to shade the panel.
I have heard of some, I don't know if Green Spark uses it, but you bring in goats, sheep,
Solar grazing.
pigs for maintenance? Is
Yeah.
that- have you implemented that in any of your arrays
We have.
you have?
Yep. And the conservation board, who we were here with last week, asked about that opportunity here. It's certainly not out of the question.
But I don't know, in this area with Tobin, there's a stream in that, in wetlands, you know,
Right.
might, I don't know if you introduce, animals, then you have the consummate.
So generally we stay
Nation.
away from goats because they
Correct.
eat everything,
Right.
including the wiring.
Right.
But the sheep, have demonstrated to be a win-win because you're lowering your overhead cost in terms of maintenance and mowing, and also providing, you know, an opportunity for grazing and another revenue source.
Green Spark you don't sub out your maintenance? You
We
your
don't.
own-
We do it in-house. We do partner with subcontractors for certain monitoring elements. In the case of solar grazing, that would be a subcontract if we were to pursue that.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and mention this last week, just solar grazing is becoming more commonplace. It's so basically you bring in the sheep or whatever you
Mhm.
2 or 3 times a year. So they actually will like bring them in, leave them for a week and then pick them up and take them something else. So where there's more solar farms, especially for Ithaca, there's a lot of them, there's a lot more of those grazing opportunities. And there's really not, to my knowledge, anyone sort of in this immediate area that's currently doing that, but you know, I would see something like that.
Business opportunity, Mr. List.
Well, you know, I do own a little piece of property on Reeves Road. I was thinking about renting some goats.
So you mentioned, it's a 25-year agreement. Can this project be assigned or sold?
It
Can it
could.
be bought out?
That is, you know, a provision within the lease agreement that, you know, our forgetting the words, speaking of words,
Signed
our
or
assignees and
sold? Yeah,
our,
same kind of thing as on your mortgage. Yep.
yep,
Well, okay.
but that is not the intent.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
that's,
so- yeah.
But they would assume this project if you were, is that what you're saying? That if your company, something happened, the new owner would assume this project and
Correct.
be obligated to the 25-year?
thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Our finance project. All the projects that we work with them on, it's a sort of a long-term thing, but there are certainly parts of the solar company or solar industry, it's not unusual to build a project and then flip it after a certain period of time and have multiple owners. So,
Mhm.
you know, we recognize that theory on that. And, you know, we can never say never, but our intention with our project is to.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And operate.
And yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I was just gonna say, we really at Green Spark value that as one of our, you know, competitive advantages, that we intend to be the boots on the ground partner, the face of the project there for the long haul. So that is the intent here. And that's it's sort of a dynamic. The flipping dynamic is something we run up against in a lot of our municipal permitting meetings because it often results in poor maintenance and poor operation. And we really pride ourselves on long-term care of these assets.
Have you come up with any, I noticed on your website, you have some testimonials here in farming and agriculture. Purple Painted Lady, Cherry Laundry Farm, Young Summer Winery, Fox Farms. You run up against obstacles with the various municipalities that these properties were located in?
It's
Headbutting, what, can you give an example maybe of how have you satisfied them?
Sure. I think in large part where we have run up against pushback, there's been a solar developer in the town that has created a bad name for solar. And so demonstrating how we are different, showing examples of our arrays versus some of our competitors, does allay some of those concerns. I think, in some communities, there is just a sentiment of skepticism around solar. There's a lot of misinformation out there that we try to remedy, for lack of a better word. But I think, yeah, demonstrating that we want to be a long-term partner, that we're not a developer parachuting in from, you know, across the country, just to make a buck. We are committed to Rochester and the greater Finger Lakes area. And we really think that solar is an opportunity to create livelihoods and prevent the worst of climate change.
And I think the other
Thank you.
issue that often comes up is very much focused on business.
Yeah.
That is probably the number one thing that comes up. What is it look like? I feel like both of the, or all three of the projects you presented, I think one of, as being in this industry, identifying sites that are not really visible from neighboring properties, it's always sort of target while being weather sensitive. So if we can sort of, I would like to see them more often, but kind of hide it so that not everyone can see where it is. That's sort of always one of the goals with going into them, obviously, and I think we're all three of these projects that's, I feel pretty comfortable with what, the what we have, so they're not really visible from the how
Yeah.
sensitive that.
This technology is still, I mean, I know it's been around for a long time, but it's still really, in terms of time, in its infancy. What is the shelf life on this equipment?
So 25 years is sort of the industry standard that you hear thrown around. Again, like a lot of these larger arrays started going in the early 2000s, the 2010s. And so they're just coming up to that age. But the older arrays, they've demonstrated that with proper care and maintenance, you can easily exceed that the lifetime of the equipment and the panels in particular exceeds 25 years.
And is this stuff scalable? So whatever you're putting in is technology now. If you had to replace one, obviously it's gonna be more efficient. So that's what you do, just swap it out and the electronics, technically it's plug and play and you're good to go.
Yes, more or less. I mean, certainly there's, with the modules, if you were replacing it with larger modules, you'd have to make sure that they were the same frame size, and you might have to make some adjustments. It wouldn't be that complex.
Or even the
but
voltages would change because it's better.
potentially, yeah, there's a few different things, but all in all, like, one of the things they talk about a lot in the industry is sort of repowering so 25 years is the warranty production life of the power. So they will produce at that, by 25 years, they have to be producing 82% of what they were producing at 25 years. So they're still producing electricity after that, but just not to the same level. So what a lot of people have said is, okay, well, after 25 or 30 years of a project, do you do the cost evaluation thing? Okay, do we go, purchase new modules and, make the necessary adjustments to the infrastructure and basically redo the whole project on that same area? That's certainly an option. But, as we mentioned, we have a lease structure in place. The owner doesn't have to renew it. If they don't, we have to remove everything. Town has the decommissioning part of this where if it's not operational, we have to remove it. So I think, in an ideal setting, I would think that people would want to try to repower and, use the infrastructure there as it is, but we have plans to.
Yeah, I guess my concern is, because it's in its infancy and you've got different power things happening kind of all the time. If something becomes antiquated and all of a sudden we don't have any use for this, I understand that if you guys are still functioning, it's your job and your responsibility to remove these, but otherwise we have several ghost towns of these things sitting around on land. I understand that's dire and kind of apocalyptic, but it is a concern of mine. What's a dimension of one panel? Like how many square feet is a panel?
4 by 6.
So let's just say you have one panel that goes bad. What is, when you decommission one, what happens to it?
We recycle.
They're all 100% recyclable, all the material?
I believe it's about 99%. So it's mostly glass, silicon, the steel frame. I know there's a couple other elements in there, but it's 99%. Uncommon.
Okay.
Will there be any commuter planning with this project?
Great question. So the town board has declared their intent to require a pilot here.
Okay.
In many communities, the IDA does kind of broker that on behalf of the taxing
Okay.
jurisdictions. I think here the town has indicated that the town would be sort of leading that discussion, and the extent to which the committee will be involved is sort of in development.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we just backtrack for a minute about the tree removal?
Yes.
2.5 acres?
Yes,
You're avoiding the wetlands, but there is a creek that runs through there. How close would that be to that creek that runs along those property lines?
correct. Yes, great point. So we have completed wetland delineation for this project, which basically just entails going out into the field and mapping all the wetlands on site. I believe that the stream that you're referring to.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was as a Class C ephemeral stream,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, and Steve, please interject if I'm not, please fact check me. It's essentially weather dependent. So kind of grows with increased precipitation. Our area of disturbance is wholly avoiding that stream as delineated.
And is that, it kind of jogs the plans, the array jogs?
Right.
out. Is that because the landowner to the north? Yeah, there's a tree line to the north of your array, and then there's an open field. Is that owned by is that owned by somebody different, and that's why it's not going that direction? Okay. A different parcel, okay. Okay, the tree line kind of gave it away. I just wanted to confirm that.
Okay, are there any more questions on this project? We don't have to make, and we're not going to do anything with it tonight. We are being asked to submit our opinions and thoughts to the town board. Which I guess is something we could do after we hear the next application, but does anybody else have anything they want to say?
I just had, is there much of a fire hazard with solar panels?
Great question. And I imagine you've heard, some press around fire hazards associated with battery storage. Generally, no. And we are consulting very closely with the fire marshal and the building and fire prevention group to ensure that, we are compliant with all of their recommendations.
Because I noticed a comment from the fire marshal here that ensuring adequate spacing between the rows of panels, is that where would the fire hazard be located at the battery portion or the
Yeah.
or would it be between the panels? I don't.
Yeah, so to Brooke's point, these projects were not proposing battery storage. So
Yeah.
any potential risk of fire would be sort of at the major transformer switch gear. It's like any large.
Sure.
Here. Yep. Those are on their own. That would be, in all of our years in our operational projects, I know we've had one that had more of somewhat of a fire issue. But for the most part, within the modules themselves, there's very little.
Okay. Thank you.
How do you inspect the panels? Is it a physical inspection? Is it how do you monitor? those?
Great question. And Matt, you can probably speak to this in more detail, but go ahead.
Yeah, so for sort of maintenance, so we basically we're responsible for the maintenance of the custom systems. We do work with an outside partner, and they basically are receiving real-time data at all 24/7 about the system production. If there's a failure or there's some sort of issue that's going on, we will get a notification from them. They'll call us and say, hey, let's do this. Usually it's, there's a panel out, this needs to be switched out. There's some minor issue, but there's sort of a 24/7 maintenance happening of the system. So the system alert, you basically alert if there's an issue. As for like on-site, there's a lot of different testing that we do. I mean, we actually fly drones over the top and sort of like the direct check to see how, if a panel is damaged or a section of panels are damaged, identify And yeah, there's a lot of different tests that much smarter people than we do, to make sure these things are all operating. But to the point of like, it's in the interest of everyone in this project to ensure that it's operational, fully operational, but that's sort of the power of what drives the economics of these projects. So if it's not working, something's wrong, someone's in trouble. So, we're always trying to make sure that these things are running at full capacity.
Yeah.
And then we are on site a couple of times a year to inspect.
Thank you.
Brooke, how about noise? Is it a tracking system that they use?
Yeah, great question. So the array really does not produce noise above ambient levels. Really the only sound generating, when I say sound, it's like a low hum. Elements in the array are the inverters, which convert DC power to AC power, so usable power. The transformers, and then because we're proposing trackers here to improve the efficiency of the project, trackers essentially allow the solar panels to follow the sun throughout the day. And so there are a couple of motors throughout the array that power that tracker so that it's slowly tracking the sun. The decibel levels for each of those elements are in the range of 62 to 66 decibels. That is generally like a normal conversational noise level. And so that's right at the equipment. And as I noted, that's measured right at the source. As you back away, the sound levels, the way that sound measurements are measured, is that it's reduced by about 6 decibels for every doubling that you're backing away from the source. So basically, if I'm over here, it's gonna be like, my neighbors. Generally, when we go out to these sites to measure post installation, it's virtually inaudible relative to the ambient noise levels, even in agricultural areas.
And if your hearing's like mine, it's probably 10 decibels lower.
That's a good point.
All we hear is that ringing.
And we would be happy to, we don't have a tracker installation locally. There certainly are some. The closest project that we've installed is at RIT on Bailey Road. Certainly, hoping people are interested to go. I could call Charlie or Mel. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm sure he would let people on the video site too.
That's pretty well hidden. It's pretty well hidden. Those.
Yeah, it is.
The remote.
Okay, any more comments on this? Yes, okay, Mr. Rucker.
Yeah, I've been kind of
Been
waiting.
patient.
Quiet.
Yeah, so just some of the comments that I have, definitely the 2.5 acres of trees to be removed is a lot more than we've seen before. So will we see this again in planning board? Because
Yes.
we're just doing comments based off of incentive zoning. Okay.
Right.
So I'll just be frank with my comments for future planning boards for you on this one. Then the 2.5 acres that we're seeing removed of the existing trees is a lot on that western side. I don't know if there's a way to throw them up on the northern side. I see the property line's pretty close to the other neighbor, so I don't know if there's a way to help buffer that.
And there's certain setbacks that they have to maintain as well.
Yep. So we'll, and I'd like to see those vegetated if possible. So that's, again, just comments for future planning board procedures, nothing for the incentive zoning. Just so you know, we've received complaints from neighbors. They have contacted Charlie Ramel and gone out to his site and have commented on noise, which I'm not sure is the driver to the neighboring farms not allowing. The ag exemption or the farmland protection concept. But they have voiced concerns over that. So I wasn't also aware of if there's an ability to help shield that some more.
Okay,
Again, just for planning board, not again for incentive zoning.
Yeah.
They have to be a tracking system, Chris, just so you know. It's a good question still, but
Well, you're welcome. Yeah,
you know why they're tracking?
so they can get more sunlight.
Well, yeah, but how do you tell they're tracking?
I'm sure there's a joke in here somewhere. I
North,
will
they're
not be
they're
the-
north-south orientations,
What's that?
north-south. They're going perpendicular.
Oh, which way? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, north south.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if there's a way to, I mean, you want to obviously not bury your panel and transformer in the middle of this because you want, in case of a fire, you don't want that coming in contact. You want to be able to reach that. So, but maybe it's the ability to barrier it with some vegetation would be beneficial. So the trees were an issue and stuff like that. The incentive zoning concept problem that I have is that it is an active farm. And then we're not, you know, again, the reasoning for the large scale solar array was to protect local farms, not remove them.
Yep.
To help offset income for an active farm. So I'm not sure how this benefits either one of them. So I don't have I guess an offset. It's for the board. I don't know what they're looking for from us as far as what are the benefits it could be. If there isn't a benefit to a farm here or something else, I don't know what else to kind of comment.
I think those are the kinds of things they're looking for.
Right, and on this particular application, and I see a difference. I don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
But this, I have a little bit more of a, I guess, I couldn't come up with anything. We're not benefiting a local farmer here. I don't know what else to do.
Well, you are preserving farmland long-term, Clyde. I mean, you think about it, after 50 years, maybe the solar panels go away and now you still have
Maybe,
farmland that can be used.
maybe.
It's not a housing complex.
Right, but we're not benefiting a farmer who's trying to farm this area now. And, you know, to jump into Bruce's comment, you know, we have Bruce, who's a farmer, who's, you know, trying to use land that, again, that isn't farmable, but it's gonna benefit the farm. It's gonna benefit Howlett Farms. You know, I don't wanna, you know, I know we have to still kind of get into that concept, but I'm just showing my disparity here between the two. The solar code was written to help farmers and to keep farmland, not remove it, so. Mr. Heinz isn't even, I don't think, actively farming this. He rents it out or leases it to somebody else.
Yep.
So, you know, there's.
Are they farming it?
The Heinzes are not, I believe.
But
it's a
who
lease.
he leases it to, are they farming it? I just wonder.
Yeah.
I think in these photos, of course, these are
Yeah.
older.
I mean,
photos.
Aren't the
They do
Willards
so.
farming that?
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't-
there's
who-
soybean crop.
Soybean?
Somebody's farming it, I don't know. who.
Yeah.
But it's right, it's not the Heinzes.
Right, I think the Willards do that.
What's
So-
this?
And
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, I was kind of a.
What's the soil classification? Is it high quality soil, per soil?
that's
I got our
like-
soil expert in the audience here, but I'm kind of curious.
I
We're
don't,
Henrietta, we have Class D soils here.
yeah, I actually don't have that information in front of me. I know it's a mix. There are some prime soils here. That is very much part of Ag and Markets review as they review impact to the ag district at large.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we agree that farmland preservation in the context of solar is really important, given the contention between the two industries, and we really applaud the town on the intent of the code. I think in this case, you know, that is not what this particular landowner is presently interested in. And finding contiguous, so to meet the letter of the law of the solar code, we would need to find contiguous farmland to illustrate that we are building on an active farm. And so short of that, we were exploring opportunities for, okay, looking a little farther afield, you know, are there other farmers that would want to, you know, partner with us to preserve their farmland? And I think because we could no longer pursue farmland preservation under the solar code, so the lifetime of the project, 25 years, and then we're sort of like pushed into the farmland preservation in perpetuity, that really became a difficult needle to thread. And so I guess one question we would have is there a scenario in which we could find a 25-year conservation easement as part of the incentive zoning package? I don't think that comports with the letter of the law of the incentive zoning code, but that's something that we are curious about. Because farmland preservation in perpetuity seems to be a challenging ask.
Yeah, I can understand that concept.
Yeah.
So, but those are, that was my concern with this particular person.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure how the best way to handle this is. I think maybe we can move on to the next application. And we've got the basics now. We can talk maybe more about the incentive aspect of that one. And then as we, at the end of the meeting, we can add our comments or provide our comments for the town board that they're looking for. But yeah, let's move on to,
Danny Gibson.
I just.
go ahead, Dan. Yes,
have
thank
one
you, Mr.
question.
Estrella.
I already asked it and my pen didn't work, so I couldn't write down. What was the section of the code that you read to the board?
For the incentive zoning,
What-
it
at what point-
it was 295-34, 11C
11C.
Yep.
And 12C, right?
And 12.
and 12C. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on and we're going to look at application number 23-017 and 23-018 together here. Green Spark Solar 23017. It's final site plan approval of a 6.739 megawatt DC, 5 megawatt AC photovoltaic solar array on approximately 24.63 acres located on East Henrietta Road, to be known as Middle Road, in a rural residential district. And application 23-018, final site plan approval of a 2.414 megawatt MWDC 1.875 MWAC photovoltaic solar array on approximately 7.4 acres located on East Henrietta Road, to be known as Middle Road, in a rural residential district. So again, we're looking at two parcels here, kind of backing up, but butting up to the thruway, to the east of Middle Road and north of Erie Station Road.
Correct.
Yep, okay.
Yep.
So on that one, so tell us what incentive you're looking for there. And I'd seen your notes and a couple of your proposals there, but go over those with us if you would, please.
Absolutely. Yes, so and just to clarify, it is two separate arrays within the same tax parcel, and we will be pursuing an administrative subdivision to parcel those out. So the incentive sought here is again relief from the dimensional requirements of the farmland preservation provision of the solar code. In exchange for providing an amenity to the community. And we've put forth a couple of different ideas for town board review and comment. So as part of the base scope for the project, of course, we need an access road as a landlocked parcel. We need to find an easement through an adjacent parcel. And so the proposal here is to build the access road through the Masonic Care Community parcel to the west. And they have committed to providing that easement. And we've, as Chris referenced, we've been working with them closely to map out the precise alignment of that road to ensure that it aligns with their plans for the
You're
site.
showing that right there. That's the paved area that goes, yep, that's it. Yep. Yep.
So one of the incentives here is basically bringing this up to Because the town is interested in developing public access to the trail, is really making that more of a public road. That could, that could support very good reviews. So that's number one. Number two would be, that narrow space for the country need, an approximately 5 acre portion, width of the road.
Who would deed it? I'm sorry. Land, okay, thank you. Yep.
Right in that corner, Brooke, right in this corner up here.
Definitely not,
Okay.
and so that would obviously change the alignment, based on where we think like that parking lot. But the proposal would be around that. And so if we were to change that alignment, because the environmental impact perspective, it would be a little lighter touch. So I think like Peter does sort of capture the potentially really impactful alignment. And then it would be, the wetlands, the utilities, the food something that's unavoidable in the room. But would avoid, the wetlands. And then number three would be developing additional public access trails and kind of conveying the access to the town, maybe the site. Adding to the town's
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So just a couple questions on the array. So they've got the trackers on them, so they follow the sun, right? How, I'm sure it's probably not an issue, but I want to ask the question, how will that be for eastbound traffic on the thruway? Is there going to be any reflection or any obstruction of their vision or interruption of their vision as they're traveling at certain times of the year when the sun is a certain level or angle or something like that? How would you protect the drivers coming eastbound?
Great question and valid question. All of our panels have an anti-reflective coating on them to prevent that glare. It also prevents birds from, thinking it's water and landing on them. But that is the first line of defense against any glare. The highway is raised here. We have not done a formal glare analysis for this site. But it is raised. And so, the intent is that, there wouldn't be direct glare lines from the array, but the anti-reflective coating is really the key line of defense there.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There are several projects as you go west of the Buffalo, several right along there.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Not an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are facing south more than,
What's that?
these are gonna face south.
They will be
Although-
east-west. So the racking is north-south.
Right.
And then the trackers go east to west, following the sun.
Oh, so they're gonna lay flat and then rotate east west.
Yep.
Oh, so, okay, they're not at a 40-degree.
Correct. They track the sun. So at some point in the day, they'll be at a 40-degree angle.
Have you guys done any of the projects that are along the thruway from Utica out to Buffalo at all?
We have not done.
Okay, any further questions from anybody on the Lehigh piece of it?
No, I'm gonna comment here, again, my disparity here, I mean, you've got the transformers internal, you got a road internal, you're right off I-90, which will probably have more noise than the transformers here.
Yeah.
And buried in the center without anybody kind of looking at it, so we've received no other comments from residents, which has been good, and we, are benefiting a farmer. This is not actively farmed. I don't know if it's poor soils or just access, it used to be accessible when the Hansons were, right, wasn't the Hanson farm the Masonic piece or?
It's Masonic piece.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if he still could have got over the creek, but still a little landlocked there, but not accessible, I'm believing due to poor soils. Not a whole lot of trees to remove here in comparison wise. I don't know what the acreage is, but the property's a lot larger, so the actual acreage might be similar, but you've got, 4 times the size of the Tobin Road site. So I don't know exactly what the areas of your tree removal is here. 3.2, but because it looks so much smaller because of the entire parcel. But I will comment that I think I've seen Bruce Howlett plant, I don't know, 1,000 trees, and it's probably half, I probably know about half of them. So Bruce has more than beautified this town with developments and other things and gone above and beyond with planting additional trees wherever he sees fit. So I want to definitely give him that credit for stuff like that. So that's my disparity between the two sites are based off of those two comments.
Well, and I do see a direct advantage to the town and its residents with this incentive here versus the other project where I didn't really notice anything that really helped us per se.
Yeah,
So-
as far as what it weighs and what's the dollar value, I don't have any,
Right.
you want this to be beneficial to the farmer. So if the town takes its cut, so to speak.
Yeah, well, at least this one has few options for amenities, so there's a huge disparity between this project and the other. How many, I know we're talking about 6,900 solar panels on the first project. How many are on both of these next two? What is it, like
On the
32 acres?
first array, we have, bear with me for 2 seconds.
I think you said 6,900 on the first one.
On the first array, so the larger array to the west, just over 12,000. And then the smaller array to the east is just over 3,000.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comments from board members?
One question, is there a particular reason you're subdividing and making this two?
Great question. Yes. So the Public Service Commission sort of oversees the compensation model for distributed generation. And the incentive model kind of taps out at 5 megawatts. They cap it at 5 megawatts. And so this co-location is really standard practice for a lot of projects, a lot of developers. But we need to demonstrate that they are operationally independent from one another in the Public Service Commission's eyes. And so there's sort of a 3-point test to demonstrate that. One of them is that they're on different parcels.
But you would build them both at the same time.
Correct. And so that's why from an environmental impact perspective, we're advancing a single seeker for both projects so that you can assess cumulative impact.
To avoid segmentation, Craig, just in case you were wondering.
Would access to
taught
the
me that.
Lehigh Valley Trail be affected while this is under construction for the general public?
Great question. So presently there's no access from Middle Road. I think there's some informal access. I know that
There is.
folks are walking back and forth. But I think, there would be no closure of an existing
All right.
access point.
It's our intention, and I think, obviously, we have to work out those details, but our intention would be to continue access there. We're gonna set up our staging area on the east side of that area, so there will certainly be times when there will be traffic over that road, but if we put in, we'll have the necessary precautions in place.
Can I ask a question to Bruce? So Bruce, I didn't even know you own this property, so there's that. There's a snowmobile club that goes through that. Are you in communication with them from past markings, trail markers, accessing it, anything like that?
A lot of different people that have gone in both parcels.
Yeah.
And that's why, there's a lot of people that walk on it.
Yep.
And so that's why we're looking to take advantage of the Lehigh Trail a bit more, and there's been mention about around the array, possibly people come from the east side, walking along it, that walk in that field also. We're not limiting anybody right now to go into the field. You go back in it, there's people in there all. So walking, biking, motorbike, whatever. We think of it as a great area for whatever, somebody doesn't want to look at the solar, some people do, some people want to look at the pollinators. And then you've got the great access to the Lehigh Trail. The town wanted the parking, so they get access.
Right, definitely. Thank you.
Mr. Rochelle, anything more, sir? Chris?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep you guys. Oh,
Can I have one
yes,
quick
no.
question? Is there fencing around this property and what kind?
Yes, great question. So that is code required, the electrical code for safety purposes. This was actually a conversation that we had with the conservation board last week. Presently, we're proposing what's called sort of agricultural fence to kind of adhere to the visual characteristics of the neighborhood. They requested that we incorporate clearance below the what's the word's escaping me right now, the actual mesh of the fence to allow small mammals to go in and out. So
Is that common? Because that's the first time I've heard of that.
We're in a problem right now where we had, and they installed a fence without it, first, so they actually show that. And basically,
That's for like rabbits and animals like that, so they can come in and use the pollinators.
Quasi rabbits, yeah.
Westerly Webbit.
Westerly,
The remote solar farm, so that was wood posts, I think it's 8-foot fence, but it was like, at least a 4x4, a 6x6 mesh, agricultural mesh.
Yeah.
That allows most small vermin without having, right?
Yeah,
They're mammal.
small mammals.
How big is squares?
Just-
I thought.
It's all about your
I can't remember
perspective.
if they're 4x4 or 6x6s.
I mean, the big thing is to keep out like the deer and the bigger
Yes,
animals and things like that.
yes.
Moose and elk and those types of.
Anything that can really do damage to the
Well, I
array.
guess, so, yeah, but the answer is, Marcy's question, they're wood posts, right?
Correct.
8 foot tall on a square.
With a
grid
wire
fence.
mesh.
Right,
Yes.
that's really, and it's, yeah, it's pretty minimal.
And did they have you had issues with rodent destruction at all? Because they like to chew things.
It's occasionally, yes, it's
Mhm.
not, that's happening, that's why we do the maintenance. It's sort of a
Gotcha.
thing. We actually have a project in Lima, we got an email of from the landowner that a deer broke in through the fence and was inside of the array. And,
For deer.
yeah, but it's okay, it got out and then we was fine, but yes, it's,
Well, there's a massive wildlife population on the Tobin Road. Oh, there it is.
So is it high enough to let in like a size of skunk and woodchucks and those types of things, or?
Pensions would be pretty low.
Yeah,
But
yeah, okay.
again, we did it for the first time on a project. I can tell you, I'll get the specifications, I don't know exactly.
Thank you.
What about security? I mean, you worried about people getting in there?
Well, it's all gated, it's all fenced.
Well, I know, but if there's a gap, I mean, certainly not you, Craig, but somebody maybe like, somebody thinner could probably slip underneath. I mean, do you worry about that?
There are certain
No connection
projects
through.
that have like cameras, and we have projects in much more populated areas.
Right.
than Never really had.
Big problem with vandalism. Yeah.
There's a lot of operating and stuff, but it's.
Will there be any type of security on any of these?
Nothing more than that. It'll be lock fence, it'll be gates, but aside from that.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank
Okay.
you.
So you're welcome to stay if you like. Understand that we are not going to make any action on this tonight. That's going to be a town board issue down the road. We just have to submit our recommendations and thoughts to them. So you're welcome to stay. I think what I'd like to do now is go through, finish these last two discussion items we've got, and then circle back and we can maybe come up with a list of thoughts we want to send to the board. So if you guys would like to stay, you're welcome to.
I just had one question before we wrap.
Sure.
So the conservation board, will those comments be incorporated into the planning board comments or issued separately?
issued separately.
Issued
actually.
separately?
Yes, typically separately, yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I,
Probably a draft right now, Brooke,
Okay.
so I guess we probably had them later in the week, maybe
great.
early next week.
It's interesting. They went there for comments, but here for discussion.
Say that again?
Interesting that they went there for comments, but here for discussion.
Yeah.
Usually it's,
Yeah, usually a little bit.
So the Conservation Board did also discuss the tree clearance plan and made reference to the tree bank. And so I think they had in mind like a particular formula for tree replacement value that we were sort of just like preemptively looking at the code to understand where that might be referenced.
Landscaping guidelines and
No, if you look at our landscaping guidelines,
Yep.
you might find some of that in there,
Okay,
which is, it's been adopted per town board resolution, but it's not law per se.
got it. Okay,
But yeah, we could talk about that a little bit later, Brooke. Or
Okay.
maybe we'll talk to the chairman once you see the comments to see, exactly what they're looking for.
great. And again, like,
Because this is a little unique. It's not like a parking lot or a building where, they also have a formula that says if you put this many parking spaces in or this impervious area, you gotta have X amount of
Right.
trees,
right.
or they use different factors. So I guess that's something we'll have to take a harder look at.
Okay, terrific. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We
very
really
much.
appreciate
We
it.
Appreciate all the education tonight. It was very helpful.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And we'll see you again, I'm sure.
Yeah. See you in December.
Now, where's Green Spark? Where are you guys headquartered?
Ontario, New York.
Ontario?
Yep.
Okay,
So right over the county line,
yeah, okay.
Wayne. Thanks, Bruce.
Now, you guys don't have that big windmill. That's not yours, is it? Is
That is,
yours?
that,
So our company, so we're 21-year-old company.
Yeah,
We originally were a wind energy company, so we installed, not the smaller one, but the taller.
yeah, the big one, okay. Yeah,
What's that
yeah.
company?
Huh?
Wasn't it Howmet or something?
Harbeck. for
Harbeck.
Harbeck,
Plastic.
right.
So that's our floor, was our land.
Okay,
But he's not anymore.
Harbeck has, they've sold the property off. It's still Harbeck, but it's owned by a property man.
Yeah, because he was big into the whole,
Yes, yes,
oh
he
yeah, big time. Thank you.
thank you guys very much. Okay, we'll just change pace a little bit, you guys. Let's do, we got two discussion items here. First one is True Blue Self-Storage Facility Expansion. We are to discuss approving a 6-month extension for application number 22-017 that was originally approved on November 15th, 2022. This project is going to be located at 78 Goodway Drive.
Do we know why they're just held up on the
I
process?
saw a letter and it's,
Somebody changing ownership.
change in ownership. That's right. One of the partners is trying to buy out the other partner and there's
Oh.
some sort of snafu there.
Okay.
Yep.
Make a motion to approve the extension?
Yep, Mr.
Motion to approve.
Borkowski, thank you.
Second.
Who had the second?
Barley.
Barley, thank you.
Walt was late.
Story of my life.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The chair of the ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay, next one is Southridge Landing. We're to discuss approving a 6-month extension for application number 22-019 that was approved on November 15th, 2022. This project is to be located at what will be known as 2520 East Henrietta Road in a commercial B2 zone district.
this is the one behind CVS, right?
Yeah, I thought,
Down
trying to
there,
figure
yeah.
out which one it was too.
So moved.
Mr. Barley's got the. Who's got a second?
Second.
Mr. Liss. Okay,
They're having problems with their entrance to the state, so.
are they?
And
Okay.
of course, they have to get all the approvals before they can get the funding from the state or
Okay.
Fed, so it takes time.
So.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And the chair, the ayes have it. Motion carries. We got an extension. Okay, so let's go back to Greens Park. And so the board is really looking for our suggestions for incentives or other ideas or things like that. So let me just jump in again and say that I really Unless I'm missing something, again, this was a lot of information to digest and learn about, but unless I'm missing something, I didn't really see much advantage to the town from that Tobin Road project. I
Sounds
mean,
like there's gonna be some creative, thinking going on.
well, I didn't see where it would fit into any of the definitions we have for.
About that, well, yeah, but what about the historic properties incentive category?
All right, so
What
as,
if we, during seeker, what if they find something architecturally, I mean.
Yeah,
it talks
archaeologically
about-
So that one is not in an archaeological sensitive area, believe it or not. And
There's
there are no
any-
historic houses near it.
Yes, there are,
Well, it's further, not adjacent
further
to it.
down.
Yeah, it's about, was it a quarter mile away, maybe?
Well, and Walter, I don't know if it's our responsibility to find out what their amenities should be.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Well, Aren't we supposed to give suggestions?
yeah, but a suggestion would be like, what are we gonna get as a town, like a historical site, I maybe, but, you know, at least on the other one that we're talking about, they're talking about giving us a trailhead. A parking lot.
Yeah.
And,
access.
yeah, and moving on to that one, I would say, whatever, you know, they said 3 options, well, ask for all 3. You know, that's where I would go with that. So,
Then I'd be willing to throw, I mean, we can add to this or value it. I mean, the 2.5 acres of trees coming down for this small amount.
That's huge.
I would not mind, you know, either, we have Educators Grove, Hodgkins Park that needs a bunch of, foliage trees and stuff, so they could.
Land
benefit-
bank,
What's that?
for the tree land bank?
Yeah, I
Is that
mean, the
what you're-
tree bank to effectuate Educators Grove specifically. That landscaping, I think, is gonna be quite extensive.
Where is that?
That's Hoskins Park, which is.
Old Pinnacle.
Road where it
Pinnacle
splits
and
it,
Whitney, where it splits.
Yep, right
That's
across
a
from the
small,
station.
pretty small area down there. though.
Yeah, pretty small park, but it
They're
was,
saying we need a lot of trees in there?
well, they wanna, yeah, the idea is to make that Educators Grove, a park for educators. There's already been a couple donations from people to, teachers that they've had there that have either passed or, you know, so people, the specific park that we're trying to develop.
We're outstanding alumni.
so are you saying that?
Are you on that list, Mr. Martin?
Oh, how about that? Look, class of 82.
That would be the
Nobody's
potential,
donated it.
Craig, are you saying that would be the potential trade-off for Tobin?
Yeah, that is beneficial as far as an incentive.
Taking some
Yeah.
trees.
That's not, but what you said really no, unless they.
I'm sorry,
there's
Jay, what was that?
We're talking about maybe having them donate trees to the tree bank.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of like a donation, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's,
That's where I'm a little confused because
But if they're landscaping a park that we're developing, then that's a benefit to the town without this
Yeah.
tree bank.
Dan,
We
did you
give them-
find
give them a
anything
list of trees
about
that they
the,
okay,
go and
the
plant.
park initiatives at all?
yes.
Was it hidden in there somewhere? I couldn't find it.
There's been discussion too of them replacing the pavilion, removing the soft shell that was
Well,
previously donated and putting in a wood structure, a permanent structure.
right, so we're getting outside of these incentives then. So can we come up with our own incentive and create anything we want to have them do if they want this job? Is that,
I think that's what the town board is asking is. what
so we don't have to stick with these 4?
Whether or not they again balance or, you know, barter.
About extending the sidewalk on the portion, I don't know where that project is with the town, but there was talk about extending the sidewalk on Calkins from where it ends by Tumbleweed up to the crosswalk over to Tinker
Oh,
Nature
yeah,
Park.
we're doing that now.
You're doing it.
The town's doing that.
It's
now.
going to be done.
Yeah, there was a problem with the easement to the church.
Okay, all right. That was one
Very
idea.
good point too. Well, and for that matter too, is the sidewalk on Hawkins Road between East Henrietta and Pinnacle. Because that road is getting redone and the county is looking to us to front the cost of the sidewalk.
There's another trade-off.
There's a trade-off.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Craig, so
Yes,
the
we
fact
need
that
it.
you're bringing this up, I assume the town board is already on those potential items that we can improve.
Yes, and I think again, what they're looking for is anything else that we see that might be a benefit.
All right, so we can go outside of the defined incentive.
I don't know about
Incentive
outside, but I
zone.
mean, I think it's still a benefit to the town, albeit in a park, albeit in a.
The town board is. I think
I don't understand that verbiage either. I don't think it's. you know, tight.
What'd you forget?
Oh, you do the short
I hope you
straw.
cook.
Come sit right up here where Dwight's sitting.
Yeah, you can sit way up in front here.
So Chris, I have a question.
You know, I know, because of that comment I made earlier, I guess I hold that. I'm sorry, Jim, go
So
ahead.
Chris, I have a question for you. So if
Yeah.
we wanted to have them do something relative to the neighborhood upgrade incentive category, if we had some utilities and services we wanted them to drag along, even though it's not part of their project, could we make them do something in another part of town that we want done?
Yeah, like maybe we want to,
Suggest, right.
yeah,
So
that's a
yes, we
good
could do
question.
that
I think we could. I don't know, Dan, what do
The
you,
problem still is you're benefiting a smaller group instead of the town as a whole, I think.
yes. Good, actually, it's a good point,
Well,
Greg.
no, yeah, I use that as an example, but if we wanted to have them, if we wanted to go into,
I'm sure it'll help you.
We did, okay.
I don't know,
But- I think like a park amenity or something like that would probably carry
the
more
open
weight.
space incentive.
We looked at that before too, with extending like water to people that don't have water, but in a sense, you're effectuating a benefit to just certain people.
Well, that's true.
I like the trailhead. I like the parking lot people can use for the trail.
That's,
Those are
That's
great.
very
That's
nice.
how-
Yep.
The road itself,
okay, so,
I would say for the second part, these two other applications, ask for all three of the amenities. And
okay,
then, you
With
know,
the town board balance and way.
yeah, and then the town board, I mean, it sounds like they've already got 5
we're
ideas. for this
suggesting
other one.
relative to the
Maybe those are-
incentives.
Doesn't Luke do this?
That-
Yeah, he is.
I
Yeah,
have,
that,
I
relative
think it
to
might
the-
be good to
Luke is
have,
also doing that for
suggestions.
Heather. He's been trying to take notes.
Okay.
yeah,
We
have
haven't
them-
Did you have
made
something to
these yet
add?
tonight, Luke, but,
Gotcha. Okay.
So would that effectively take away some of the power going to the client, the end? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
that's
that's-
helpful.
There's
So,
another idea.
Now we're
Rec center too, nice
Right.
big roof on that critter.
Mhm.
The library has a geothermal system, but obviously that doesn't effectuate electric.
So we'll have our new town.
Tinker.
so can I?
Hey,
use
why don't
the
you
word-
come on up and, yeah, talk,
Can I use the word install, possibility to install? How should I word that?
Are you talking about on the rooftops of
Yeah.
public, yeah.
As
Are you-
your,
are you saying you would install panels on those buildings, or we would just generate, you would send us power from this?
No, they would-
no, generate.
We could possibly do either. Percentage wise of the array that we're proposing, I'm not sure, but, the availability for an X% discount on getting an array installed on that property is very likely.
Okay.
So in order to get the town a cheaper rate of electricity on their library, the rec center, where it needs it the most, we would have to.
Town hall, town court.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you were trying to investigate, we were seeing like, do they have solar panels? And we thought
New
you already
court.
had solar panels.
We have them here, yeah,
Oh, they do?
They're just very old, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we were.
Senior, the
So
senior.
suggestions.
So I think what
uh,
Mia's saying that she'll provide any type of solar panels on any town facility. Write that down, Luke.
Including each of our
We're
homes.
still being recorded, just so you
Yeah.
know, Dwight.
Yeah, we are.
Solar arrays.
And you
Oh,
mentioned-
Craig.
So my map, we need 5 of their panels per resident. So for, you know, the rec center. Oh, 15. It should be a little different, but 4 by 6.
Yeah.
We get her name?
Still-
Yeah, I don't know. Is your name on here?
I can sign.
What's that? Yeah,
Nope.
so maybe you'll get a new one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your input. Those are great ideas. I would say those are great amenities.
Talk of the town.
So that's a good one. Indicate that we all agree with the 3 for, Bill Lehigh, 1 and 2. Thank you very much.
Those are, the same incentives for,
Lehigh, 1 and 2. Yeah.
That's a great place to start.
1 and 2.
It's a great place to start.
So what is it, trail, parking and access?
Access, yeah.
I was doing the math and it's about 5 panels to do enough energy for 1 residence for 1 year.
Are those the
Alright.
3? Do I have them correct? It's a road because it is a permeable gravel, so, but trail is.
But they
trail.
would make it, they would pave it. They would pave it and make it permanent.
So parking, road access, and is trail correct, or is there?
Trailhead,
Trailhead.
yeah.
Thank you, Mia.
Development or, sure.
How'd you get stuck staying behind?
Right.
You know what though? So that, is that your boss?
Yes.
First of all, she's so sharp. I didn't know she was pregnant until
Yeah.
she walked away. And she's wearing the black and the big thing. All of a sudden she turned and I was like, what the?
So when she do?
Oh,
Next week.
Yeah, no wonder she's 12.
Oh, wow.
12 times pregnant. Yeah.
Very good.
She's wearing it well.
It's more like than not that I would be the one up there,
Next month?
Okay, nice to
Very
meet
good.
you.
Okay,
Yes,
so,
well,
Hospital
fingers
smells
crossed.
good.
Right.
Your guess is as good as ours.
Rexton
Yeah.
Library, Town Hall, School, they partner with schools quite often. We all agree for the 3 incentives for Lehigh 1 and 2, trailhead park, trailhead, parking, road access.
yep, and say incentives for Tobin Road, because that would be the Tobin that we're looking for something there.
So it's a pass all over.
I saw their name up.
Mhm.
Children.
Yeah. Like 4.
And I think that's pretty good, actually, because again, I don't see them fitting so much in these per se, but this is a great, compromise for sure. I think,
Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah.
Because that makes so much sense. It's a huge benefit. You know, we're adding the ability to.
make the town more
create
green,
the
yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, our whole green initiative, that's a huge thing for us as well. So being able to create that clean energy, give back, and it's like full circle.
Yeah, the better we can serve, the better we can market this one.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear.
All right, do you guys think we're good with, yeah, we're good.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn at
Eight 27.
8:27.